I Never Had a Wife, the lone cowboy who rescued a widow and her children, was story. Daniel rode alone across the wide frontier under a sky that was not like Earth's sky. Two pale moons hung above him, glowing softly through thin clouds. The land stretched far in every direction, filled with red dust, silver grass, and strange rock formations that floated slowly in the air as if gravity forgot them. People called this world New Horizon, a colony far from Earth where old Western life mixed with advanced technology. His horse was not fully mechanical, but not fully natural either. It breathed like a real animal, but faint lights moved beneath its skin, showing the energy systems inside. Daniel trusted the animal more than most people. The steady rhythm of its steps matched the quiet beat of his thoughts. He wore a long coat covered in dust from many travels. A wide hat shaded his eyes, making it hard to read his expression. Most people remembered him as quiet and polite, but distant. When asked about his past, he gave short answers and moved on. He never stayed long in one place. Late in the afternoon, Daniel saw a small settlement ahead. Metal buildings stood beside wooden structures, showing how old traditions blended with new technology. Smoke rose from chimneys, and solar towers turned slowly in the wind. The sign at the entrance read, Dust Haven Settlement. He slowed his horse as he entered town. People watched him carefully. New arrivals always attracted attention, especially in a place that had seen trouble recently. Some faces looked tired, others worried. Children stopped playing to stare at him. The sheriff stepped forward, a strong woman with gray hair tied back in a calm but alert expression. She rested one hand near her belt, ready but not hostile. Passing through? She asked. Daniel nodded. Looking for water and a place to rest. The sheriff studied him for a moment before stepping aside. You're welcome here as long as you cause no trouble. Raiders have been coming lately. Folks are on edge. Daniel simply nodded again. Trouble seemed to follow many frontier towns. He tied his horse near the main street and walked slowly, observing everything. Broken windows had been repaired with temporary panels. Some walls showed burn marks. A defense turret sat on top of a building, patched together with different parts. Whoever lived here had fought recently and barely held on. Near a workshop, he noticed a woman struggling with a damaged transport vehicle. Tools lay scattered around her, and two young children stood nearby, watching quietly. The woman moved with determination, but exhaustion showed in her posture.
Daniel stopped at a distance, observing before stepping closer.
Need help? He asked. She looked up quickly, her expression guarded. I can manage, she said at first, then paused as if realizing she had little choice. Unless you know how to repair power couplings. He knelt beside the machine without another word. After a few minutes of careful work, he adjusted a small connector and restarted the system. The vehicle hummed softly, lights turning on again. The woman blinked in surprise. That was fast. Daniel shrugged. Just needed alignment. The children moved closer, curious. One of them smiled shyly. I'm Elena, the woman said after a moment. And thank you. Daniel, he replied. She waited as if expecting more information, but he gave none. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but cautious. As he stood to leave, one of the children asked, Are you a cowboy? Daniel paused, considering the question. Something like that? The child seemed satisfied with the answer. Later, Daniel entered a small cafe to eat. Conversations around him stayed quiet. People glanced at him, trying to guess whether he was friend or stranger who would disappear by morning. He ate slowly, listening more than speaking. Two miners nearby discussed the latest raid. Machines had appeared from the desert storms, fast and dangerous. They took supplies, but never stayed long. Some believed the raiders searched for something hidden underground. Daniel finished his meal and stepped outside just as the sun began to set. The sky turned orange and purple, creating long shadows across the town. For a moment, the settlement looked peaceful. Then alarms sounded. Sharp lights flashed across rooftops as defense systems activated. People moved quickly, guiding children inside and securing doors. Daniel turned toward the desert, seeing distant shapes moving through dust clouds. Raiders. He didn't hesitate. He moved toward the defensive line where settlers prepared to resist. Without asking for permission, he took position behind a barricade and studied the approaching figures. The raiders rode hovering bikes, their engines glowing faintly. They fired warning shots into the air, testing reactions. Fear spread among the settlers, but Daniel remained calm. When the first shots came closer, he acted. His movements were precise, controlled. He used cover effectively, helping push the attackers back without unnecessary risk. Others followed his example, gaining confidence from his steady presence. After several tense minutes, the raiders retreated, disappearing into the darkening desert. The town slowly relaxed, though tension remained. The sheriff approached Daniel with a thoughtful expression. "You've done this before," she said. "Something like that," he answered quietly. Elena arrived soon after, her children close beside her. Relief showed on her face when she saw they were safe. "You helped save the town," she said. Daniel shook his head slightly. Everyone helped. She studied him more carefully now, seeing strength beneath his quiet nature. As night fell, lanterns lit the streets. People gathered to repair damage and share stories of the attack. Some approached Daniel to thank him, but he kept conversations short. Later, sitting alone near the edge of town, he looked toward the stars. Memories moved behind his eyes, though he showed little emotion outwardly.
Elena walked over slowly.
"You don't like crowds, do you?"
He gave a faint smile.
"Not really." She sat beside him, leaving space between them. "This place used to feel safer," she said softly. "Since my husband passed, it's been harder." Daniel nodded but didn't ask questions. He understood loss without needing explanation. After a moment, she asked gently, "Why do you travel alone?" He hesitated before answering. "It's easier that way." She looked at him as if sensing deeper meaning, but chose not to push further. In the distance, wind moved across the desert, carrying unknown sounds. Daniel felt something change inside him. Normally he would leave by morning, continuing his endless journey. But something about this town and this woman and her children made him pause. For the first time in a long while, leaving didn't feel simple. And without fully understanding why, Daniel decided to stay one more day. Daniel woke before sunrise, as he always did. The air felt cold and quiet, and the twin moons were fading behind the hills. Dusthaven looked peaceful for a short moment, as if the troubles of the night had never happened. But he knew better. Frontier towns never stayed peaceful for long. He walked toward the stable area to check on his horse. The animal lifted its head and made a soft sound when it saw him. Daniel brushed dust from its side, moving slowly, thinking carefully. Normally he would already be riding away. Staying too long meant forming connections, and connections made leaving harder. The sheriff approached while he worked. She carried a data tablet and looked tired but determined. "Raiders will come back," she said without greeting. "Last night wasn't their real attack." "Just testing us?" Daniel nodded. He had thought the same. "We could use someone like you," she continued. "At least for a few days." Daniel didn't answer right away. He finished checking the saddle straps before speaking. "I'll stay a little while," he said quietly. The sheriff looked relieved, but hid it behind professionalism. "Then we should prepare." As the sun rose, the town became busy again. People repaired broken fences, reinforced walls, and adjusted defense systems. Daniel moved among them, helping where needed without giving orders. Still, others naturally followed his example. He showed them how to place barriers more effectively and how to use cover during attacks. Elena worked near the transport vehicle he had repaired the day before. Her children stayed close, watching everything with curious eyes. When Daniel passed by, the younger child waved excitedly. "You stayed," the child said. "For now," Daniel replied. Elena gave a small smile. "Thank you for helping yesterday." He nodded once, uncomfortable with praise. Later that morning, strange signals appeared on the town's communication tower. A technician called Daniel and the sheriff to look at the readings. The screen showed repeating patterns moving through deep frequencies. Daniel studied it carefully. "This isn't random," he said. "They're scanning. Searching for something." The sheriff frowned. "What could be here worth that much trouble?" "Something valuable enough to risk repeated attacks." Rumors spread quickly. Some settlers believed the raiders were after hidden technology buried beneath the mines. Others feared the land itself held secrets left behind by earlier explorers. That afternoon, Daniel walked the outer edge of the settlement, studying the terrain. Elena followed after finishing her work. "You look like you're solving a puzzle," she said. "Trying to understand how they think," he replied. She walked beside him quietly for a while. The wind moved her hair, and the desert stretched endlessly before them. "My husband used to say this place was special," she said softly. "He believed something important was hidden here." "I thought he was just dreaming." "Since he died," she continued, "I focus only on survival. Dreams feel too heavy." He nodded slowly. "Survival comes first." "You speak like someone who has lost something too." Daniel remained silent for a moment. Finally he said, "Long time ago." She didn't push further, respecting his boundaries. As evening approached, the children found him near the workshop. They They asked him to teach them how to aim a small training device used for defense practice. He agreed, showing them basic techniques with patience and kindness. Their laughter felt rare in a town filled with tension. Watching from a distance, Elena felt both warmth and worry. The children already trusted him, and she knew how painful it could be when someone left suddenly. Night arrived, bringing colder winds. Guards took positions along the walls. Daniel joined them without being asked. Hours passed quietly until the communication tower detected movement again. Lights appeared on the horizon. This time the raiders came closer before revealing themselves. Their vehicles hovered low, engines glowing faintly. They circled the settlement, scanning again instead of attacking directly. Daniel watched carefully. "They're mapping defenses," he said, "learning patterns." The sheriff ordered everyone to stay ready, but hold them back from firing unless necessary. After several tense minutes, the raiders retreated once more. The settlers felt uneasy. Waiting felt worse than fighting. Later that night, Elena found Daniel sitting near a small fire outside the town. He stared into the flames as if seeing something far away. "Why do you keep helping us?" she asked gently. He thought for a long moment. "Because you need help." "That's not the full answer," she said quietly. Daniel sighed softly. "Maybe I'm tired of riding away all the time." "My children already see you as someone important," she added. "I don't want them hurt if you leave." He looked at the fire again. "I don't plan that far ahead." Silence settled between them, but it felt honest. Scouts reported signs of larger raider forces gathering beyond the hills. The town prepared for a full attack. Daniel helped organize groups, showing them how to move together instead of acting alone. People began trusting him fully now. He didn't try to lead, but leadership found him anyway. While checking equipment in the mine area, Daniel noticed unusual energy readings beneath the ground. The sensors showed faint pulses that did not match natural minerals. Something ancient might be buried below, something powerful. He shared the discovery with the sheriff and Elena. The realization changed everything. The raiders were not just attacking randomly, they were searching for this hidden source. "If they find it first," the sheriff said, "we may lose everything." Daniel knew she was right. As the sun began to set again, dark shapes appeared in the distance, more than before. The raiders were returning, stronger and more prepared. Daniel stood beside the settlers as they waited. He felt the familiar tension of coming battle, but something felt different this time. He was no longer fighting only for survival. He was fighting for people who mattered, and for the first time in many years he felt afraid. Not of danger, but of losing something he had just begun to care about. The sky turned dark orange as the sun slowly disappeared behind distant mountains. Dust Haven stood silent, waiting. Everyone felt the same heavy tension in the air. This time the raiders were not testing. This time they were coming to take something. Daniel stood near the main gate, watching the horizon carefully. The wind carried fine dust across the ground, making shapes that moved like ghosts. He could see distant lights growing brighter. Raider vehicles moved in formation, more organized than before. The sheriff walked beside him. "How many?" she asked. "More than last time," Daniel said quietly. "They're serious now." Around them, settlers took positions behind reinforced walls. Some held advanced rifles, others used older tools modified for defense. Fear showed on many faces, but determination stood stronger. They were protecting their home. Elena guided her children toward a safe shelter, but paused when she saw Daniel. Their eyes met for a brief moment. She gave a small nod, full of trust and worry at the same time. He nodded back. The first wave of raiders approached slowly, scanning the area again. A loud voice echoed through speakers demanding that the settlers surrender and leave the land. No one answered. Daniel watched their movements carefully. "They want us scared," he told the sheriff. "But they're also searching. That underground energy source must be real." The sheriff tightened her grip on her weapon. "Then we hold our ground." Bright lights flashed as raiders fired energy blasts toward the walls. The settlement's defenses responded quickly. Turrets activated, sending controlled bursts toward the attackers. Dust filled the air, making it hard to see clearly. Daniel moved calmly through the chaos, guiding settlers into better positions. "Stay low. Work together," he said again and again. His voice remained steady, helping others focus. The raiders tried to break through from different sides at once, but Daniel predicted their moves. He used the narrow paths between buildings to slow them down. Old cowboy tactics mixed with futuristic technology created a surprising defense strategy. For a while, the settlers held strong. But then a heavy machine appeared from behind the raiders, a large walker with glowing legs and powerful scanners. It stepped forward slowly, sending waves of energy across the ground. Walls shook as its blast struck nearby structures. Daniel felt tension rise. This machine could destroy their defenses if it got closer. We need to distract it, he told the sheriff. Without waiting, he ran toward a side path, drawing the walker's attention. Shots landed near him, throwing dust into the air, but he moved with practiced skill, staying just ahead. Meanwhile, another group of raiders slipped toward the mine entrance. They were trying to reach the underground source directly. Elena saw them while helping people move to safety. She quickly realized their goal and ran toward the mine area to warn others.
Her heart raced, but she refused to let fear stop her. Daniel noticed movement near the mine and changed direction immediately.
He reached the area just as raiders began forcing open a sealed entrance. A short fight followed, fast and intense. Daniel used the environment wisely, disabling their equipment without unnecessary harm. The settlers joined him, pushing the raiders back. But during the chaos, a loud cracking sound echoed. Part of the mine structure began to collapse. Elena and her children were trapped near falling debris. Daniel didn't hesitate.
He rushed toward them, ignoring danger around him.
Dust filled the air as rocks shifted and fell. He reached the children first, guiding them carefully through a narrow opening. "Stay close," he said calmly, though his heart beat fast. Together they escaped just before another section collapsed. Outside, she looked at him with deep gratitude. "You didn't have to risk that," he shook his head. "Couldn't leave you there." For a brief moment, they stood close, understanding passing between them without words. The battle continued around them. The heavy walkers still advanced slowly, breaking through barriers. Daniel knew they needed a new plan. He gathered a small group and led them toward an old canyon path behind the settlement. "Follow me," he said. Using hidden routes, they reached higher ground overlooking the walker. From there, Daniel spotted a weak point near its power core. He guided the group carefully, timing their actions perfectly. When they struck together, the machine lost balance and shut down, falling heavily into the dust. Cheers rose from the settlers. The raiders began retreating, realizing the attack had failed. Silence slowly returned to Dust Haven. People moved carefully among damaged buildings, helping each other recover. The town had survived again, but everyone knew this was not the end. Later that night, Daniel sat near the edge of the settlement, watching stars appear one by one. Elena approached quietly and sat beside him. "You saved my children," she said softly. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Anyone would have done the same." She shook her head gently. "Not everyone runs toward danger." They sat in silence for a while. After some time, she asked the question she had been holding back. "Why do you keep saying you never had a wife?" Daniel stared at the horizon, thinking carefully. "'Cause it's easier than explaining everything." She waited patiently. "I used to belong somewhere," he said slowly. "A team. People who trusted me. I lost them during a mission. Since then, I travel alone. Feels safer." Elena listened with understanding. "Loneliness may feel safe," she said gently, "but it also keeps you from healing." Behind them, the town began repairing damage again. Even after fear and danger, people worked together with hope. Daniel realized something had changed inside him. This place no longer felt like just another stop on the road. The people here mattered to him now, especially Elena and her children. And as he watched the stars above the strange frontier sky, he understood that the biggest battle might not be against raiders, but against his own fear of belonging again. The morning after the battle arrived slowly, as if the world itself needed time to recover. Dust Haven looked tired but alive. Smoke rose gently from repaired chimneys, and people moved quietly through the streets, fixing broken walls and helping each other. The attack had been strong, stronger than anything before, but the settlement still stood. Daniel walked along the outer edge of town, checking damage and watching the desert. He knew the raiders would not give up easily. The underground energy source was real now. They had seen signs of it, and others would come for it too. The sheriff joined him, carrying a small device showing new scans. "We found something deeper in the mine," she said. "Energy readings stronger than before." Daniel studied the data. The signal pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. "If they control this," the sheriff continued, "they could power entire fleets. Maybe that's why the raiders keep returning." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then we need to protect it or hide it?" The sheriff looked at him carefully. "You sound like someone who has faced things like this before." He gave a small smile. "Maybe I have." Meanwhile, Elena worked with other settlers, organizing supplies and caring for injured people. Her children stayed close, but looked happier now. They laughed more, especially when Daniel walked past. He had become part of their world without meaning to. Later that day, a scout returned with urgent news. Raider forces were gathering again beyond the canyon, larger than ever before. This would likely be their final attempt. The town gathered in the main square. Fear moved through the crowd, but so did determination. They had survived before, and they would stand again. Daniel stepped forward quietly, not as a leader, but as someone ready to help. "We can't defend forever the same way," he said. "They know our walls now. We need to use the land itself." He explained a plan using narrow canyon paths, hidden traps, and controlled energy bursts powered by small pieces of the underground source. The strategy mixed old cowboy knowledge of terrain with advanced technology. The settlers listened carefully. Slowly, hope replaced fear. Preparations began immediately. People worked together, trusting Daniel's calm guidance. Elena watched him from across the square, seeing a man no longer trying to stay distant. He spoke to everyone with quiet respect, helping even the youngest understand their roles. As sunset approached, the sky turned deep red. Raider ships appeared in the distance, dark shapes moving across the horizon like a storm. Daniel stood beside Elena near the edge of town. "You don't have to stay for this," she said softly. "You could still leave." He shook his head. "Not this time." She smiled gently, understanding what he didn't say. The battle began with a loud roar as raider vehicles rushed forward. Settlers retreated into canyon paths as planned, drawing the attackers into narrow spaces. Hidden devices activated, creating barriers and slowing the raiders. Daniel moved quickly from group to group, keeping everyone focused. His calm voice helped people stay steady even as danger grew closer. The canyon echoed with sounds of engines and energy blasts. Dust filled the air, making everything feel unreal. At the center of the fight, the raider commander appeared. A tall figure wearing advanced armor, clearly experienced. The commander advanced toward the mine entrance, determined to reach the hidden energy source. Daniel stepped forward to face him. The moment felt heavy, quiet, despite the battle around them. Two figures stood against the fading light, one fighting for control, the other for protection. The commander demanded surrender, promising safety if the settlers left. Daniel refused calmly. A tense confrontation followed. Daniel moved with careful skill, avoiding unnecessary harm while stopping the commander's progress. Finally, using the terrain and precise timing, he disabled the commander's equipment, ending the threat without cruelty. Seeing their leader defeated, the remaining raiders retreated. Slowly, silence returned to the canyon. The settlers gathered, tired but victorious. Cheers rose softly, mixed with relief and disbelief. Dusthaven had survived again, not through strength alone, but through unity. Night fell peacefully for the first time in many days. Later, Daniel packed his gear near the stable. Old habits returned. After every victory, he usually left before morning, avoiding attachments that might grow too strong. He paused when he heard footsteps behind him. Elena stood there, her children beside her. "You're leaving?" she asked gently. Daniel hesitated. The desert stretched behind him, calling with familiar freedom. But the town, the people, and especially the small family felt different. One of the children stepped forward. "Will you come back?" The simple question stayed in the air. Daniel looked at them, then at the rising twin moons above. For years he had told himself that staying meant pain, that loneliness was safer. But now he understood something new. "I used to say I never had a wife," he said quietly. "Maybe I said that because I didn't believe I deserved a home." Elena listened silently. He continued, "But maybe family isn't something you lose forever. Maybe it's something you choose again." He slowly removed his saddle from the horse but didn't mount it. The children smiled immediately, understanding before words finished. Elena's eyes softened. She didn't rush him or demand promises. She simply stood beside him, sharing the quiet moment. Morning arrived with golden light spreading across the frontier world. Daniel walked through the town not as a traveler passing through, but as someone who belonged. He helped rebuild damaged structures, guided new defenses, and shared meals with people who now trusted him fully. Standing beside Elena and her children, watching the twin suns rise, Daniel felt something he had avoided for years: peace. The lone cowboy was no longer alone. And under the endless sky of New Horizon, a new story began, not of running away, but of staying, protecting, and building something stronger together.